So how did you get started in business?
So I actually got started when I was 11 in sixth grade.
How old are you
Yeah.
now?
I'm 16 now, so that was 5 years ago. That was 2019. Sixth grade, I started a clothing brand on print on demand. I don't think I even got a domain set up. It was absolutely awful.
Wow.
I tried to do it on Shopify, print on demand, called it Betrayal Clothing, ran it with my boy, and we were both in sixth grade. That was after, you could call that our first business venture, besides our Fortnite clan the year before. But yeah, that was my first experience. The next thing I did was cold calling plumbers and offering to give them the white label Go High Level.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
So that was the second thing I ran. I actually have a video of me talking about my first cold call, like me right before my first cold call. I was like shaking. I was super nervous. I was terrible. I didn't even get close to closing anything.
How old were you when you did your first cold call, bro? Because you're
my first cold call, I was 14.
Wow.
So I had a super light voice. I was shaking. My voice would shake like crazy. I would have voice cracks. Calling these blue collar guys who had they wanted nothing to do with me.
Yeah. Especially because they probably thought you were very young.
Yeah, exactly.
You know? Like, who is this kid? What's he trying to sell me?
Plumbers, electricians, just like the worst possible way to start out as a sales guy, because those guys are really stubborn. Obviously nothing against them, but they're very stubborn, especially if you're trying to sell them something.
Yeah.
And I just did a terrible job of explaining what I was even offering. I was like, hey, I can give you this website CRM thing. I would just like use these big words that they didn't know what they meant, basically, and just go on and on.
So why did you want to get started in business?
I've always wanted to do something really big.
Okay.
Whether it's just something big, and I feel like business is kind of the root of that, or at least just having money in general.
Yeah.
So I feel like that is the first stepping stone, because I don't really know exactly what I want to do, but it's going to be something big. Yeah. But I feel like having money in the bank, having a solid foundation, that's really the base and the structure of doing something big like I want to do. So that's really what started it. Also, just my hatred of school. That was an extra kind of light to the fire. And yeah, just I was terrified by the system, basically. I know it sounds super cliche, like the whole 9-to-5 matrix thing, but that just terrified me.
Yeah.
So
I think it's interesting for you because you're still very young.
Mm-hmm.
And you being 16 years old saying, like, I don't want to do a 9-to-5, I don't want to necessarily do the whole college thing, I don't want to do this, I want to do business, especially like starting out at like 11 years old.
Yeah.
Is I think you're part of like a very new generation of people who are not only like, you see a lot of things on social media, but I think you're part of a new generation where you understand that, okay, like there's ways to make money and there's ways to be successful outside of this traditional route.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, you could still be successful if you do take the traditional route. I took the traditional route for a number of years.
Yeah.
But I think it's interesting because you got started very early. And let me ask you this, do you think you had a normal childhood, or do you think you're having like a normal childhood?
As of now, absolutely not.
Okay. Because I don't think so either.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing, is like you're starting out very young. Like I remember, I was actually very much like you. When I was about 12 years old, I was like, I want to be rich. I want to have an island. I want to have a Lambo. And obviously we're sitting here in the Lambo. But like, I knew from a very young age that I wanted to do business. I didn't really find that vehicle until I was about, how old was I? The first successful business I had, I was 24. But it's interesting because you're fucking 16 and you're able to have success doing a number of different things. Well, mainly it's now the one thing. Do you want to give some background about that?
Yeah. So around 2 years ago, I started with email marketing. I was doing email marketing for e-commerce brands, but the problem was I hated the people I was working with, the service delivery, everything about it, mainly because the actual deliverables were more design based and I didn't like that. I liked the copywriting aspect of it way more.
Yeah.
So around 6-7 months ago, I moved into strictly doing copy for info products. So courses, coaching programs, everything like that. And then about only a month ago, I moved into more of a full stack role for these info product companies. So funnel building, system stuff, anything back end related, CRM stuff, emails, all that. So I tried to move into a full stack kind of marketer role and becoming as irreplaceable as possible, because that's been my goal recently. I want to become as irreplaceable to my clients as I can, and that's the trajectory that I've been on over the past month or two.
So when did you find my stuff? So you were originally, I remember you in Cashflow Syndicate back in the day, so this was about 2 years ago.
Yeah, so Cashflow Syndicate was what got me into ecom email marketing. Although I didn't have a ton of success, I probably peaked at like 3-4K. Cashflow Syndicate was amazing. Especially for the price, it was like $20 a week or something.
Yeah, back in the day.
Yeah.
And then you got into so Cashflow Syndicate eventually became the agency course.
Yep.
And then now you've kind of taken that stuff and you've transitioned it into more of a full stack role. So what was your experience like, basically transitioning out of just strictly doing like the email marketing or the copywriting into more of that full stack role? Because like it's the thing that I always say is you have to have the skill stack in order to go and move into different opportunities, and that the things you're going to do come from the things that you do.
Yeah.
So what has that transition been like? Kind of going from like, okay, I'm just going to provide this one service to now you're doing a multitude of different things, and give me an idea exactly like what that transition has looked like, and then now how you're moving forward from there, and what that basically entails.
Well, so it wasn't an immediate black and white switch, like immediately I'm doing this and then the next day I'm doing that. I did something called the Trojan horse method, which is you go into a business offering one thing, whether it's copywriting or some type of VSL scripting, content scripting, maybe Twitter ghostwriting, anything like that. You go into a business offering one thing and you slowly move up the ranks by completing as much different service deliverables that you can, and just learning as much as you can inside of that info product business or whatever business it is, and just slowly learning more skills, and then eventually just slowly transitioning into the full stack role. So that's what I did. It's called the Trojan horse method, and I think that's the best way to start. You can't just immediately switch from, okay, now I'm just a copywriter, I just do emails, maybe some VSL scripting, maybe some landing page copy, and then switch immediately into like growth operating or whatever, which is what's being pushed recently over the past 3-4 months.
I think you have a good point there, because at some point, regardless if you want to be some sort of freelancer, and you can probably speak on this, if you want to be some sort of freelancer, if you want to do some sort of thing to make money online, eventually you end up running some sort of agency. Right? And agency in the term is like you're doing a ton of different stuff for the clients that you're delivering for. And you're not just necessarily doing one thing. You're going to eventually, especially where you're at, because you have, how many clients you have now that you're working? How many people that you have?
I would say 4 or 5. Okay. I do some one-off projects too.
Okay. So you're eventually going to need to hire more people. And you eventually run some sort of agency business where you have a client success manager, you have an account executive, you have some sort of sales team, you have some other people that are helping you actually grow the business, versus you having to focus on the service delivery, having to focus on the client acquisition, having to focus on everything yourself. Because let me ask you this, what happens when you try to focus on everything yourself?
You can't run your client's whole business. It puts you in absolute hell. So this is what I was in with my copy clients. I was working with guys who didn't have a ton of money. They were, harassing me all the time. You were working all day. I was working like 15, 16-hour days over the summer, which no one wants to do. Sometimes it's the necessary thing that you need to do.
Absolutely.
But sometimes you just shouldn't be doing that, especially if the clients are only paying you like $1,000 a month. So there's like a meme where it's like $500 client who just harasses you like crazy, and then $5,000 client who's just way more chill, and you can just do the service delivery with no complaints, no harassment, and just get it over with without working full-time roles for each client, which is the worst position to be in, is when every client thinks you're like a full stack role or a full-time role when they're only paying you like $1,000 a month.
And so how did you, so you were doing, so give me some more background. So you were doing the copy, so you peaked at what when you were just doing strictly copywriting?
like 4 or 5K. I was on a
Okay.
lot of Rev Share deals, so it wasn't super rigid.
Okay.
And another thing with Rev Share deals, you guys really want to avoid those if you know the client. Because I would take on Rev Share clients, and I would have this thought in the back of my brain, okay, these guys can't really like make that much money. If you know, unless you're 100% certain that these guys can actually make money, then you want to work on some type of retainer or base fee. Because otherwise, and especially if you don't have a contract, because I didn't have any contracts in place, I didn't even think it was possible.
Which is something I told you to do.
Yeah.
I told you to do that.
Well, so I was like 15. I didn't even know it was possible to do it if you are under 18, which it is possible. So that's for you guys who are also under 18.
Yeah.
It is possible, and it actually, the law kind of favors you if you're under 18 when you set up a contract, because you can back out of it, they can't,
Yeah.
etc. We don't have to get into that. But
let me ask you this. So when you started out, because you were like 14, 15, now you're 16, right? So some people might look at you and say, okay, you have more experience. Oh, this kid, he has years of experience, whatever. When you got in my stuff, how quickly was it from, okay, you were at 0, because I remember when we first got to talking one-on-one, you were at like 0, you were just starting out.
Yeah.
How quickly did you go to get to from 0 to like 4 or 5K a month?
so it was about like 3 or 4 months. I started in November. That's when I joined the agency course, the program with David. So it was about 3 or 4 months. And I think that is a lot faster than most people, but it could be due to the previous experience I had with cold calling. Like, I know I talked about that story about how bad I was, but I got a bit better.
Yeah.
You know, I'm still not amazing at sales. I still have lots of room for improvement. But I did get some valuable experience from talking to super stubborn blue-collar guys who wanted nothing to do with me. So that helped me a lot, especially with working with guys in e-commerce who are, less scary, I guess, to approach and work with.
So let me ask you this. So how many sales calls do you think you've actually made in general? Because I don't know if you have the most experience cold calling.
Yeah.
Right? Obviously, it's probably nowhere near my experience.
Yeah.
But how many like cold calls do you think you've made in total?
Cold calls in total, it would have to be like not that many, maybe like 100, 200 max.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were able to do 100, 200 cold calls in your entire life.
Yep.
And you got to 4 or 5K a month.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, when I was doing outreach, or I was on sales calls, or I was preparing for sales calls, I would act like a sniper and not like someone who had a machine gun. So I would do as much research as possible, create as much samples or, loom breakdowns as possible for each client I would reach out to, or each client that I was preparing to do a call with. And so that would kind of confirm that I was going to get that client. Like, I've only taken maybe 25 to 30 sales calls in my life.
Yeah.
In total with like the whole email marketing thing. But I closed like probably 60 to 70%, because before each call, I would go on something called Miro, which is like this app breakdown thing. I would create either a funnel, or whether it be, email marketing, I would create a whole process with samples and, video breakdowns. I prepare for the call like crazy, and I would act like a sniper and not like some crazy guy with a machine gun sending automated cold DMs, automated cold emails. Yeah, so that's one of the biggest things I learned from David, is that you have to do manual outreach. It is absolutely imperative that you do that.
But to that point,
Yep.
that's exactly what I taught in the course.
Yeah.
Was here's exactly how you go about an outreach process that is going to be proven to get results. It's going to be proven to prime the calls for actually when you get on the sales calls, so you can show them your process.
Yeah.
Even if you have 0 experience, and I'll give you guys some game here. So something that I teach in the program is, if you have 0 experience and you want to get started doing whatever it is, whether it's email, whether it's copywriting, whether it's web design, whether it's software development, whatever it might be that you're going to sell as a service, what essentially that you do is you sit there and you're like, okay, you take a few different companies and a few different industries, or companies in industries that you might want to work in, because you need to be in alignment with your strengths and not your weaknesses. You take these different companies and you actually build out work samples. Now, it doesn't matter if these people actually move forward or not. All you do, and the reason why you're doing this, is so that you can actually break down your samples of work, your process. What is it that you're trying to achieve? What is it that you're doing? How is it done? why does it work? Because people want to know why the thing that you're doing or telling them works actually works. People want to know how it works. People want to know, okay, how is this going to do compared to my systems that I have in place right now? Or what is this doing compared to what am I doing right now? So that's what I actually break down in the course. You build your sales assets and you build your sales material and your portfolio. And even if it might not be actual work, it's work that you've done to prove the concept that you're doing or actually prove your process. So what you do is you take that information and you condense it into Miros, whiteboards, Notion documents, Google documents, videos, all this different content. And so now you have ammunition that you can essentially load up when you actually go and move forward with the customer or the client on the sales call, so that you're not going in cold DM, trying to pitch them blind, sending them fucking Google links and sending them all this stuff that people don't want to watch, people don't want to click on. You want to show them that you actually know what it is you're talking about. And it doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter what your previous business experience is. It matters as long as you use the system gets results. Because there's a lot of people out here and all of your competition is using the same thing. If they're automating emails, they're sending tens of thousands of cold emails and DMs, and they're paying for all these different softwares. And all you need to do is you need to condense your time. You need to take 1 to 3 days. It takes what, 3 days?
Yeah.
You need to take 3 days and go through and pick apart your process. Why are you doing what you're doing? Why are you writing the copy in this way? Why are you building your landing pages in this way? Why are you developing the thing that you're doing in this way? Right? Here's how it works. Here's what they're doing right now. And then you just break down their process right now, what it looks like they're doing, and then your process, how it's better, why it works, because people want to be told, people don't want to be sold.
Yeah.
So that's some free game for you.
And to add on to that, another benefit to not only showing your competency, but to showing why people should work with you. There's a saying that you only learn something when you teach it. And even if you don't fully understand what you're actually going to provide for that potential client, and when you act as this sharpshooter, you're basically teaching it to someone. When you're sending these Loom videos or when you're creating these samples, you're understanding your process more, you're understanding your deliverables more, and that's just going to help you get so much better. That is one of the reasons why I got so much better at copywriting, is because I was doing so much copywriting because of this outreach method that I was doing. I was sending, maybe 5-10 samples a day, and I was just in Google Docs all day, just writing copy, perfecting my processes, and learning it at the same time while I would teach it, because that is literally the scientific way to learn more about.
And also you were getting paid to learn, because once you sign a client or two, you're now, even if you have no experience, you're getting paid to learn, which is also something that I teach, because I think everybody should be getting paid to learn. We're seeing too many people these days go into deals where it's, oh, I'll give you a rev share, and then what happened? They do a bunch of work, they don't get paid, and they get burned. And you have to get paid for your time. You have to get paid for the things that you're doing, because if you're not, then you're just wasting your time, because there are better opportunities out there than the ones that people are trying to recruit for. I see a lot of people get into the online business world and they get into one of these agency roles, or they don't do contracts, or they do rev shares, or they're doing something, and they end up getting burned for the amount of money that they were owed, because they never signed a contract, they never signed an agreement, or they're from a different country or something like that, and they don't get paid on their work because they never were able to enforce it. You guys
need legally enforceable contracts, especially if you're not getting paid up front. If I got burned so many times on stupid Rev Share deals where they said they would pay me at the end of the month, I would generate them X amount of cash, and then they would just ghost me. If you guys aren't setting up contracts and you're not getting paid up front, you're just asking to get used and then dropped.
Yeah. So what do you think the future holds for you?
Future.
So what are your goals now?
My goals, I would like to hit 30K per month by Christmas of this year.
Which I think is doable.
I do think it's doable as well. I'm going to stick with this business model for a long time, because it looks like it's only getting better.
I think it is only getting better, because your competency is really increasing, man. Even from when we first started talking, now you were showing me before we went to lunch. We're coming back from lunch right now, but before we went to lunch, we were actually sitting in the Penthouse and we were talking about some of the different projects we were both working on. And it's really exciting to see Sebastian's growth because he 7-8 months ago was asking me, well, how do I get clients for email marketing? And now he's showing me, yeah, well, I built out this landing page and we're creating these angles for this, and this for this offer. And I think, this offer is going to work because of this. And so he's really becoming a marketer. And he's built on the skill set of like, oh, I'm just going to do, let's say, one thing. Now he's starting to understand the entire ecosystem, which in turn, the projects he's on are going to make him more money than if he was just doing one freelancing thing or just one thing in general. I wish I was being able to be 16 and sit here with someone like me or, have someone in a mentorship role, because now it's like I'm on the other side, right? When I was 16, I couldn't figure any of this stuff out. I was in my room playing video games. I was playing Call of Duty. So at the end of the day, I think like there's a lot of things to learn, but you're going to be a lot more successful than all the other people your age because you're just simply not only front loading the time investment, you're front loading the work, but you're also learning at an accelerated pace, which is really cool to see because you're very similar to me. And the reason I wanted you to come out here was because you're very similar to me. Like we have similar stories in terms of like things that happened like, earlier in my life. And I was always wanting to learn at a very fast pace and I was always wanting to be successful. And when you can recognize that in someone else, then you need to basically you want to make sure that person is successful, right? Because I had two mentors in my life that were like very pivotal to my success. And I had one at 22 and I had one when I was 21, and one guy was an entrepreneur and the other one was my other sales manager. So it's important to cultivate the talent that you see, and you see raw talent, and when you see ambition, it's important to cultivate that and make sure that these people are going to be successful, because later on, there might be work that we're going to do together and things like that. So
absolutely,
yeah, that's cool. If you have any advice to anyone watching this, what would your advice be?
However much you think you're doing, you're not doing enough. Whether it's outreach, whether it's learning your skill, whether it's just volume of any kind, you're not doing enough. You might think you're working hard if you're doing like 8-hour days. You need to just work harder. That's just the simple truth. I know it sounds cliche. It's what everyone tells you, but it's true.
I feel the same way, bro.
Yeah.
I still feel the same way. What else?
The real workers will feel guilty after they work 16 hours a day, and then the people who are in it for the short term are gonna feel like they're on top of the world after they work for like an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Other than that, become a very good speaker. I know that's very ironic. I just messed up my words there, but
don't worry about it.
Yeah, become the best speaker you can. In terms of articulation and in terms of confidence, conviction, and learn your skill as best as you can. Become the best you can at your skill. That's a lot more important than any outreach technique, any type of sales tactics. If you can't deliver the service and you can't actually make your clients money, then all of that is completely obsolete. Any sales tactic, any outreach technique, all of that doesn't matter if you can't deliver the service.
So what's the word we use? Competency?
Competency.
Yes,
absolutely.
How do you feel about your progress so far?
If I'm being honest, I feel underwhelmed.
Really? Because you seem a lot more confident.
I have grown in confidence, but I do feel that I have not done nearly enough. And especially with the people I compare myself to, and a lot of other kids my age are doing way better than me. They're completely lapping me. But
that's crazy to think about. Yeah. That's crazy to think about, man.
Yeah. No, I feel like I haven't done enough. And I feel like I'm always gonna have that feeling just in the back of my head, just nagging at me that I'm not doing enough. But I think that is a blessing and a curse. So I'm grateful to have it, but at the same time,
So that's something that never goes away.
Yeah.
For people like us.
Mm-hmm.
The feeling of I need constant conquest.
Yeah.
Never goes away.
Yeah.
And you either got it or you don't.
Yeah.
Right? There's a lot of people who are content in their lives with the things that they have or the things that they want. But it's also, my message to anyone watching this is it's okay not to be content. it's okay to be angry that you feel like you're not doing enough.
Yeah.
It's okay to be angry that you feel like you're still not at the top of the mountain, because that is going to continue to push you, whether it's positively or negatively. It's going to push you, hopefully, to where you want to be. It's going to stress you out sometimes, but it's also going to give you feelings of satisfaction that you're like, shit, like I'm not where I want to be.
Yeah.
And this is like, there's a place in the clouds that I'm not at yet, and I want it, and I want it, and I want it, right? And that feeling never goes away, because it's just innate, it's just genetic. And if you're watching this, then you're probably a similar type of person who you feel like you want more for yourself, you want more for your life, and you know that there's a better life out there for you, and all you have to do is go and get it. That's what I knew when I was growing up, was I know that there's a better life out here for me. I see people who are doing amazing things that I'm not doing, or that people around me aren't doing, and I want to do that. I want a piece of that. Like, I remember coming up and watching some of the guys online who I actually know pretty well now, which is fucking crazy. But like, dude, we're blessed to do the things that we do, and you're certainly blessed to be so young doing what it is that you're doing. And it's certainly important that obviously you stay on the right path and you do the right things and you learn all this stuff, because by the time you're 18, 19 years old, you know, you might be doing a few $100,000 a year, $100,000 a month, hopefully. So, because as time goes on, right, the decisions you make today are worth more than decisions you make tomorrow. So as things compound, you just constantly get better and better and better. And if you continue to focus on marketing, or you continue to focus on, you know, being really good at the things that you're doing and continue learning, what's going to end up happening is you're going to be so much better than all the people who didn't focus on one thing and focused on all the other things. I think that a lot of people get shiny object syndrome. I think a lot of people keep bouncing around, especially on the online space, especially, you know, as they are still young. And so you really need to, and what would be your advice to the people that continue to bounce around? Because I think you always need to, it's better to focus on one thing or focus on one skill set at a time and build on them, versus trying to do everything. There's a lot of people trying to do appointment setting, trying to do this growth operating thing, trying to start agency, trying to do this, and this, all at the same time, when in reality, you need to just focus on one thing. What do you think?
That's the biggest mistake I made, probably, is bouncing from dropshipping, SMMA, literally any business model you can think of. I tried it, growth operating. I guess that's kind of what I'm doing right now, but not really. I bounced around from everything, and it just left me in a constant plateau where I didn't know why I was failing, until, you know, someone made me snap out of it and realize that if you focus on one thing for like 3 years plus, it's literally impossible to fail. Like, if you're moderately competent just in general, and you focus on one skill, one business model, one thing for like 2-3 years, no one's ever failed doing that.
I think it's like 6 months, maybe.
Honestly,
I don't know, man. I went from 0 to 10K in my first like 2.5-3 weeks when I started agency, bro. Like, but I also had tons of sales experience. So, you know, you were able to do it in a few months with zero experience at like 15, 16 years old, which is crazy. But I think, like, you know, as long as anybody puts the work in, I think it's absolutely achievable. And the only way that you're going to fail is if you fail yourself.
Exactly.
You know?